I was thinking this morning and I wanted to say a few things. One was that I'm really grateful to you for being my first guest. And I wanted to say that the inspiration for starting this video project slash podcast slash um, ongoing rant um, was what came from some of our discussions over the summer.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And I'm just, I'm so inspired that you're doing this. So it's definitely inspiring me to see that podcasting is possible and easier maybe than one thinks. So I think it's awesome you're doing it.
Good. I had an interesting interaction with my sister this morning because she had sent me a text saying I saw the first episode. It was great. Mike sounds good. Um, but I think you should ask every guest, something very specific and recurring. And the question she thought I should ask was, why do you think the arts are essential? And it kind of got me. My initial reaction was, I don't really want to have a recurring question that I ask everybody like that. I feel like I want their words and their work and their existence to kind of just show that without having it needed to be articulated.
Mm.
And then I got to thinking more about the title and addressing the elephant in the room, which was the pandemic. Basically, it's a reference to that label. And it got me thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the structure that he had laid out for our fundamental needs, of food, water, sustenance, and how as we move higher on the pyramid, we come to the final need, which was self-actualization.
Mhm.
And it got me thinking about that term, non-essential worker, and what that sort of brought up for me over the pandemic, and feeling like when shit hits the fan, I'm not really needed, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess I just wanted to clarify that I don't think the arts are essential when we're talking about life and death situations. But when
Yeah.
it comes to society as a whole, when our base needs of food, water, health, safety are met, after those needs are met, the arts are essential in achieving optimal health, in achieving mental wellness, in achieving true insight into yourself, into your life, into all topics, spiritual, religious, societal, both for the creator and for the spectator, the observer, and the people who are consuming,
Mhm.
that. And if, anyone who's heard a piece of music and felt something, or read a novel, or seen a film and felt something, knows what that feels like and knows how those elements can shift our perspective and make us see things and ourself and our journey in a new way. So, sorry for pontificating, but that was kind of what was going through my head this morning. My sister is also has a podcast, and I'm going to have her on in a couple weeks actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was great to get that feedback because I was kind of like, oh, it forced me to kind of go back to the title I chose and look into that a bit more.
It's interesting because I feel like I connect to what you're saying. And I also wonder about this hierarchy, you know,
Mhm.
needs. And I understand it. And it's very easy, to understand, okay, we need food and we need water for basic survival. But I think at the core, we're more than we're more than that. So we just, as human beings, do require more. And I wonder if we strived, like as a paradigm, to see our emotional, mental, and spiritual needs fulfilled kind of on an equal footing as food, water, and basic necessities, like how that might change just how we approach societal norms and policy. Because I think for a lot of people, it feels like life and death, whether there's an outlet for creation or not. And I think for a lot of people, um, the will to live and their connection to art and artists have have been in close proximity. So I do think there is an essential aspect to art and artistry that runs deep through the ages and cultures across time and throughout the world. I do think that in this westernized, colonized approach, there's been such a fractioning or a separation of art as vital and art as vitality and art as being just as important as any other basic good, which I do feel is intrinsic to humanity, but we've gone far from that, which is, I think, why it's so underfunded. So I do think we're essential. I do think we're essential. I think we're essential to the human spirit and human well-being. And I do feel like that's why there are art therapists and there are arts activities in hospitals, and because it shifts self-esteem, and that shift can actually help as someone who's working on beat cancer. So I feel like they are actually so much more intimately connected than some portraits paint.
Mm.
Yeah, I think they're much interlinked. Survival needs and creative needs.
The arts is, at least here in North America, I think we are seen as the icing on the cake, the frill on top.
Yeah.
If everything else is met, you get to go to a nice concert. And that sense of it being an integral part of community, connection, health, wellness, that is not as culturally accepted here as it might be in some other places.
Yes, I would have to agree, definitely. And I think perhaps part of the problem is that because of that belief system implanting in our structural systems, a lot of the arts feels inaccessible for people because it means dropping how many dollars to see something when they don't necessarily have that. So I feel like the mindset hopefully is shifting. Like in a way, I feel like people are seeing how essential the non-essential artist worker is because it's getting them through the mental challenges of this pandemic, and it's democratizing the arts in terms of free online content being consumed. So feel like there's more popular access to a lot of concerts and artists activity, and all of a sudden a super famous artist and an artist starting out, they're using the same platform, like Instagram Live or Zoom. So I think maybe there's an opportunity here to shift that mindset that it's not just frills, but it's actually like a fundamental like artery in us that we need to exercise for peace of mind, for inspiration, for creativity, for mental health, for physical health. People are running and exercising with earphones on. It's just so implicit in everything that we do. But I agree, like in our cultural norms, it's sort of an afterthought, or an elitist place rather than a popular, accessible, everyday part of life and value.
Absolutely. So I don't want to talk too much about COVID itself because I think we're just inundated with
Yes.
news every day. It's daily, it's overwhelming, and a lot of it is fear mongering.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you sort of how have you been during this time? How has it affected your work, your life, your sense of self, your creative process in the creation and upkeep of your craft?
I would love to hear that same series of questions from you if there's time also.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
such a good question. I feel like um I don't know, maybe part of this pandemic experience too is ushering in more care of how we're doing, you know. I think for me it's been like we said earlier, non-linear and different kind of phases. I think initially when things were coming out, there was a certain climate of fear and not knowing, and the first lockdown, um, a lot of fear. I held a lot of fear about getting it and family members getting it, which I still work through because I'm always kind of conscious and working through the fear of something might happen to somebody I love, and so exacerbated that. And I got a handle on things because it seemed like the worst case scenarios I had in my head weren't panning out, thank God. Um, and thanks to privilege and a whole number of other things. But so initially, I felt artistically, I was not not enlivened and full of fear. I was living with my mom at her place. My sister came from Toronto, and we were sort of like in this dynamic that we haven't been in since I was in high school, all of us together.
Faced with all your old demons.
That's it, exactly. My creativity has started to regain its energy, and I've started some new projects and just have been able to give more time and energy to creating and to auditioning and to working on new workshops for the winter and kind of looking ahead. Whereas before, it felt like my lens was very immediate because I think that's what fear does. It forces us to be in that immediate view. When I think about it now, I think the amount to which I feel connected actually correlates to my creative health because that really marks the kind of shifts, the ups and downs, was how disconnected or connected I think I felt to myself and others. And that changed throughout the year. So,
Well, and I think there's this sort of slightly tired trope of the solo artist who doesn't need anyone and is in this sort of cocoon of creativity
right.
alone with their mental health struggles and their madness, and that is where they create best, and they don't need anybody. And I think there are definitely people like that, and there are people who really thrived with isolation, and or for whom this really didn't have an effect because they have this sense of drive and purpose that sort of transcends some outside experiences. I think there are people like that, but I don't think it's the majority. And I think there was this that's really interesting what you said about connection, because I really relate to that. I think it also depends what kind of person you are, but I relate to that feeling of having sort of the bottom fall out, and you're kind of floating and you don't know where to land.
Yes. Yeah, because you were doing, I mean, you in particular, because you're doing live concerts, which require people, like that is your work right now. And I feel like then this happened and that format was just no longer possible, right? Like
Yeah.
how did you how was that for you?
Well, we had our last concert on March 12th, and it was Shostakovich 5, which I think is extremely epic. I don't know if you know that piece, but it's phenomenal and very meaningful. So that was our last performance, And I went back to Ottawa for what I thought was going to be a week. We had a week off at the time, and
Right.
everything hit the fan. And so there was a lot of logistical things that were challenging, moving stuff and suddenly having to feel at home in a different place.
Yeah.
And just really waking up every day without a sense of purpose, I felt, because there was nothing coming up. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. We like a goal as human beings, we like a goal to work towards. And when we don't,
Towards something.
it's very, very hard to generate this intrinsic, internal sense of motivation where it's not affected by our outside senses of validation, either monetary or some other
Mhm.
form of validation, some other form of accomplishment, sense of accomplishment. So creating just for ourselves, I think, is a muscle that we don't often get to utilize. And we were suddenly all put in this situation where, if you want to create or just hone your craft is more what I would describe what I would be doing as. I did feel creative at times, but the rigor of meeting the instrument every day in a room and working my muscles and going over these, learning a new piece or honing in on my technique, it often seemed very overwhelming.
Mhm.
And I think there was this narrative at the time, not just with artists but with everybody, of, use this time, right? Like, this is a gift, which again for a lot of people it was. And I commend those people. I think there's going to be a lot of really great creative output that comes out of this time, a lot of amazing career shifts for people.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I dare say that I think the majority probably relates to having a slowing down
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I would agree. I wish I was that person who ended up finishing like a novel manuscript as COVID. But I'm certainly not. And I think it is true. What you were saying about external validation and needing those goals and those deadlines. I mean, I think perhaps maybe I've been at like I've had to ask myself like who how I value others, and part of that is being able to give um have people in my life that I can give my creative stuff to and get feedback from, and like having that circle of people just has felt even more valuable than ever. Just having one another, like just really understanding and seeing how valuable we are to each other, creatively and otherwise. It's
Yeah.
been
And realizing once that's taken away, realizing,
yeah.
oh,
Once the systems are down and it's like it's not automated that we see each other, and we have to do it for ourselves and by ourselves. We have to reach out and connect and make those things happen. I think I didn't feel this way before, but right now I'm really in this place of reflection on what can change and just kind of feeling the positives from this mayhem period. Um, and kind of just revisiting how valuable certain things are in my life, and how lucky I am to have them.
yeah, gratitude.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude. I was not feeling gratitude a little while ago, but something has kind of settled in the air a bit. I'm trying to practice gratitude every day, for
Well,
this
and just for
technology, for you, for the light, for this house, for my voice, for my ideas, for your ideas, like there's just so much to be grateful for.
Yeah. And the fact that, I mean, I don't know anyone in my immediate circle who became sick. So
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
that is really quite wonderful.
Yeah, I think that is all a part of this. Like, I don't even know if I would be saying the things I'm saying if like that were the case, or if I was in so many places in the world where that wouldn't be the case. Um, like just reading all the stories in different places is really, I don't know, really just makes me look at my luck and my privilege deeper, which is another current from this year is like really looking at your own privilege in um, just a more acute way.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to give an overview of what eternity is for anyone who's listening and maybe what you have planned for it?
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. Okay, so Eternity Art is um, my arts company where I facilitate workshops. It is in um, its beginning stages, although it has had several years of iterations and concepts, but I've kind of cleared the space to get to what I really want to do with it. And it is facilitating creative healing workshops where healing, transformation, and creative production all um, are intertwined, which I just feel is the nature of art for me. So after much thinking and writing in my journals and then rewriting in my journals, I've come down to two workshops that are starting in January. And the first one just feels so much like birthed from my natural life experience, and it's called I Have a Voice. And I Have a Voice is something in my acting class that the teacher, Claudia, will often ask us to say when we are not using our voices. So when we're being really sheepish and like just wanting to be liked, and it's just all very scary, she will say, "No, I have a voice." Say, "I have a voice," and all of a sudden it's like, "I have a voice. I have a voice." It's standing. It's everything changes when you really commit to that phrase. So it's become something that has helped me in literally finding my voice, that phrase. And then it's a mantra as well that I try to remind myself I have a voice. It's a very strong feeling statement to me. And I Have a Voice, the workshop is in its first iteration is 6 weeks of um, working to recover your own unique, infinite voice. So for those who have been on similar journeys as myself to feeling a sense of wanting to find your own voice and feeling the struggle and the hardship of not feeling like you can do that. It's for those folks who are looking for more time and guidance and um, reflection going into finding your own voice. Like what is even our voice? Is it just sound, or is it feeling, or does it have to do with traumas we've experienced? Is it about relationships? Is it about creativity and what we've been told about our own creativity? Like there's just so much there, I think, around voice, and what it feels like to own your voice. It's the best when you feel like I'm in my voice, I'm in my power. I can say no, I can say yes, I can say I'll get back to you later. Feeling that confidence is a really beautiful thing and place to step into. And I find myself stepping in and out all the time, but I find I've learned tools, practices, and a degree of self-love that helps usher in, you know, and reconnect with your true, vulnerable, creative voice. So that is the first one, and it's comprised of um, one-on-ones with me, and then there's also a group component, and there is a creative component. So everyone gets a chance to create something about midway and to share it with one another at the end.
I love what you said about the workshop because it kind of feels as though yes, these are creativity techniques, but it seems like you would learn so much about boundaries and holding your own and realizing what your values are and how to stick up for those things in life.
That's so true. And I've been writing the word boundaries over and over, and I know it's a word right now in like in the I mean it's almost like you want to roll your eyes at the word at this point because it's so overused, but I literally it's been a challenge, a life challenge to actually look at what that word means in my life. You know, like I have so much trouble saying no, and that affects my voice tremendously.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm really looking at that, at boundaries and voice and that relationship. Yeah.
So, what sort of artistic practices or influences are you drawing from to create the structure and format of these workshops, or this particular workshop, I suppose?
Yeah, I think a few different disciplines. For one, journaling, creative writing. Um, that's where I tend to gain a lot of self-reflection. So like offering guidance with that tool to others. Acting, I mean, has just been so valuable to me finding my voice or feeling like I can own my own voice. So vocal exercises, um, literally, you know, a lot of kind of what would appear weird, but you know, looking at yourself in the mirror and like trying to more gently take in yourself and speak words to yourself, singing, repeating mantras out loud in different ways, in different weird ways, because a part of finding your voice is finding your strangeness too. And even if it's in your own space, being allowed to play with voice and um, creativity. So it's acting, it's writing, and then it's spiritual practices like meditation, which is so valuable and so somehow challenging to get into a consistent rhythm. And yeah, taking in the teachings that I've had from a residency with a place called Wata Devi Young, Anita Africa. You know, she's really instrumental in supporting people all over the world to integrate self-love and creation. You know, so I had a residency with her, and it really kind of showed me in a deep way of how spiritual health and creativity, physical health and mental health, emotional health are all conjoined. Um, so yeah.
Hmm. That sounds so wonderful. Do you think that creativity can be taught in a way? Like
Mm.
for someone who doesn't identify as being creative or artistic, are they able to go to a workshop like this and access a creativity they sort of didn't know they had? Or how is that sort of brought out in people?
So I'm no expert, but like what I feel when I hear that question is I believe creativity is already in us. And I don't think it's taught, but I do think it is um, facilitated. I do think teachers and mentors support others in breaking the barriers to our creativity. So it's not the creativity that's taught, but the barriers between the creativity um, and and the masks we wear, um, that is taught, if that makes sense. I kind of lost my track there, but of course there's like techniques and there's choreography, and like as I'm sure your whole life has been spent learning certain pieces of music, like there of course, but that's all technique. Like the fundamental creativity is existent within us, and then our teachers and our mentors help us with techniques and all sorts of things. But also in this case, for these workshops, it's really trying to facilitate a relationship between someone who takes a class and myself as a coach to help break down those barriers that we've created. Yeah. So if somebody doesn't identify as creative, that is a-okay. The fact is they are creative because they're a human being, but you don't have to identify as that. I think identities are there for us to pick up and drop down and reassemble all our damn lives. So I've known people who are like, I am not an artist, I'm not a singer. And I've done this. I'm like, I'm not a writer. Like 10 years ago, I'm not an actor. I kept saying, I'm not an actor. I'll never be an actor. That was like a thing I did because I wanted to be so much somewhere inside me, but I was afraid. So that's a whole thing too.
We're constantly changing,
Yeah.
and something that was true for us 10 years ago. I mean, I wouldn't have known I would be living in Thunder Bay playing viola in a symphony 10 years ago. I don't know where I thought I would be.
Wow.
I don't know where I thought I would be. I don't remember, but I,
Yeah.
yeah, it's life can take us on a winding journey for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We can almost not predict, we just have to go with what feels, well, this is kind of my new way, going with what feels excites me, enlivens me, and whatever connections that brings and wherever that leads me to is the next thing.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, do you want to finish with teaching me one of these vocal techniques or mantras?
Yeah. Let's do it. So, okay. So if you take 2 seconds, do you have a pen with you?
I do.
Okay. Um, so here are some samples of mantras. Okay. I'm not going to suggest one, or I'm not going to like give one to you, because I think for a mantra, you have to feel what feels most powerful for you right now, where you are um, in this moment. So, but here are some examples. So, I am powerful. You want your mantras to be present tense. Um, I am powerful. I am alive. I am worthy of success. I am worthy of my own artistry. I am worthy of a flourishing career in whatever it is. I am healthy. So, wherever it is in your life, whether it's health or art or self esteem or self love that feels in need of more love, that's what your mantra could be about. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I did take that one workshop with you. I think we did something similar. I can't quite remember, but I'm writing these down
Yeah,
just to sort of generate some ideas here.
yeah, for sure. So if you take a moment and kind of look at those that you've written down, I can give you more examples if you want, but if you want to take a moment and just even just close your eyes and think of what comes up for you, or circle one you have there. I mean, for me, I have a voice. I have a powerful voice. I am a warrior. I am a creative goddess. It can be whatever strikes the most energy inside you.
I think just I am worthy of love.
Yes.
I think I just
Yes.
need to hear that right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if you want to close your eyes and imagine beautiful sunlight and trees and water around you, whatever environment makes you feel loved and cared for and connected to love, go there and you can repeat that mantra. You know, you can tell yourself, I am worthy of love. play with it. You know, um, if this was in a different setting, you could scream it. You could scream it because if that's how you feel, you urgently want to tell yourself, I am worthy of love. You could scream it. You could whisper it to yourself before you go to bed. I'm so worthy of love, you know, like a sweet lover beside you. And whenever you go throughout your day, come back to it. Come back to it. Whenever there's anxiety, whenever there's fear, you can come back to, I am worthy of love. You can write it out in front of you, put it beside you. So that when you open your eyes in the morning, you see, I am worthy of love. When I get up in the morning right now, I try and speak out my affirmations to the world. It will feel weird at first because it's a new habit and it's kind of funny, but it changes our inner vibration. And that inner vibration is, I think, the voice behind the voice. You know, I've been thinking about this idea of what's behind the voice. That
Hmm.
it's not words, it's something before words.
Hmm. That felt really good to do. I said it
Awesome.
about at least 10 times
Yes.
and kind of just brought up different scenarios, different environments. There's so much too with the emotion that comes up, like often in meditation, right? We're holding a specific feeling of loving kindness or gratitude, and we're holding
Yeah.
that emotion for as long as we can and feeling that in the present moment, not just the words but the actual feeling attached. And I can see that sort of being similar here,
Mm-hmm.
like holding that feeling that comes up.
Yeah. 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 It opens into a different space. It's like I can already feel like I feel calmer, even though we're between screens.
Amazing. Wow.
That was that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you doing this and your friendship and your being and your artistry. So,
Right back at you, sister, tenfold, 10,000-fold.